are so excited to have our keynote joining us tonight on stage. Elliot Begoun is a 35-year CPG industry veteran, contrarian, systems thinker, and self-described misplaced college professor. He has turned those strengths into a calling to educate, equip, and empower entrepreneurial leaders and their teams as a high-performance coach, advisor, and board member. As founder of TIG Brands, Elliot champions tardigrades, resilient and capital-efficient businesses built to last. Help me welcome Elliot.
Thank you. I'll save the somersault for my grandkids. I'm just happy getting down and back up. Thanks for having me. This is such an amazing community, and what you're doing here with EDCO and Cultivate Bend, it's the analog antidote to our 2D world. And it's so, convening and getting people in a room, and I heard the word serendipity before. It is such an incredible part of entrepreneurship. It's just that serendipitous connection. So thrilled to sit here and talk with you for the next 2 hours. Wait, is that not how much time I have? Okay. I see a lot of people making a quick dash. I'm going to talk to you about pattern recognition, something across all businesses that I see. And then I hope to leave enough time and encourage you all to pepper me with questions and make this more interactive, because I don't think any of us will benefit from me just doing the talking. So let's see if I can make this work. You already heard about me. That's great. That's my least favorite topic to talk about. I'm going to just talk about what it takes to scale a business. And this is 35 years of pattern recognition. And I have the benefit of working not only alongside entrepreneurs, but also alongside VCs and many PEs, as well as do some work for some very large companies as they look to build venture arms into their business or just connect to innovation. And I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I've been doing this long enough to see things continuously happen and repeat. And that's where I want to spend the time today, is sharing those lessons and talking about things maybe that we don't think about when we talk about scaling businesses. So first of all, this journey isn't linear. How many entrepreneurs, business owners in the room? Okay. How many of you have had things just go, from A to B to C? Okay. It's not realistic. It's not how it works. This is a very spiral, circuitous journey. But there are basically three things you're trying to do. One is clarity, right? Where am I going? What the hell am I doing? What am I trying to accomplish? What's the strategic direction? Okay. The next is execution, discipline, implementation, getting shit done, right? And then the third is legacy, trying to build things that exist without you, without your involvement. And then as soon as you have all those three things figured out, things change and you're doing it all again. And that's just rinse, repeat, do it again. Okay? Every founder, every entrepreneur needs to develop their own founder operating system. So we hear about things like EOS, but I'm talking about specific to the leader. So here's a little take-home nugget, right? A business can only scale as fast as its leader can lead it. What I see as the number one governor of a business's growth isn't product market fit, isn't unit economics, it's the leader or leaders. So having an operating system to shift from reactive thinking to being proactive, to design thinking, to be more proactive in execution and more future thinking. The second is essential tools. Every founder should have their own calendar system. I am ridiculously anal about my calendar system. I need more colors because I color block things and try to create a system that allows me to see through the chaos. You need to have energy and performance audits, and we're going to get deeper into all of this in a second. And then just clarity all of those keys to success. So we're going to talk about each here in a second. So I love entrepreneurs. Most of them that I meet are squirrels. Okay. Just saying, again, pattern recognition. What I mean by that is they're chasing their next nut. Okay. They're just always looking. Abundance is a problem for them. The entrepreneurs, the leaders that win, stay ruthlessly focused. They don't deviate. They avoid the shiny object. They prioritize high impact. They minimize things that are interesting and just focus on what's important. They eliminate noise. This is a really hard thing to do. And especially when you come in an environment like this, because everybody's going to talk about something cool they're trying. Right now, everybody's talking about all the AI they're bringing into their business. And some of those tools are remarkable and fantastic, but a lot of it is just noise at the moment. So what is important versus interesting? I'll tell a quick story. A friend of mine, Lou Jaffe, was one of the co-founders of one of the first video conferencing back in the 80s. And they were the first to compress audio and video in a single signal. So they were in Kleiner Perkins' office on Sand Hill Road, one of the big VCs. His partner's in Boston, Lou's there, and they wheel in this big old clunky machine because it took a lot of processing power back then. And a well-meaning associate at Kleiner Perkins said, "This thing's really ugly. So let's put a table skirt around it to make it look better." So they start the conference. About halfway through, the table skirt starts smoking because of all the heat. And quickly fire extinguishers come out, and there's a little burn hole in the carpet. And so after the meeting, Lou calls his partner and says, "We blew it. We blew it. We caught Kleiner Perkins on fire." And his partner said to him, "You know what, Lou? It's really interesting that we almost burned Kleiner Perkins down, but what's important is they just sat through the first the coast-to-coast video conference call, right?" So it's just a reminder, what's interesting versus what's important. So team and culture are multipliers. So one of the things I see in the building of team, right? Especially now we live in a very agile and nimble economy, which is super beneficial to entrepreneurship, where we can use fractional help, we can do all of these things. So we postpone culture. We postpone that conversation. And then we wake up one day and realize that that horse is out of the barn and there's no putting it back. So being very thoughtful from day one about founder clarity, team alignment, and being a systems builder. And I'm going to talk more deeply about each of these as we go forward. This one's woo-woo, okay? I'll admit it. But energy is, without a doubt, the hidden currency in the entrepreneurial journey, okay? Energy is vital. And what I mean by that is you have to show up every day and manifest the best version of yourself. That's the requirement of being a good leader, about being an entrepreneur. If you come in depleted, if you come in fractured, if you come in ineffective, guess what? That's exactly how your business is going to show up, okay? So energy, managing energy. If you're low energy, you're missing your blind spots. You're not becoming a leader that your team can rally around. So energy is vital. So here's where I'm going to spend time in more depth, because I have this 2 hours. As an entrepreneur, as a leader, you have to evolve. You have to move from where you were when you start a business to where you need to be when you scale one. So when you start a business, and for many times, for much of the first 3, 5, sometimes 10 years, okay, you're in that first space. I have to do everything. I'm the primary decision maker. I'm the primary doer. I touch everything. There isn't a thing about this business that doesn't cross my field of vision, okay? How many of you feel like you're still in that role in your business, okay? And I want to be clear. This isn't bad or good, right or wrong. It's just reality. This is the archetypes and what you have to matriculate through to scale your business. The next is you start becoming discerning. You start becoming an architect. You start thinking about building team and systems, things that are repeatable, things that are resilient. Okay. And then eventually what you have to get to is I build capacity in others. That's my job. My sole purpose as a leader, as an entrepreneur, is to build capacity in others. Because if you do that and you become really effective at that, there is no limit to the scale that your business can grow. So, systems over hustle. We glorify hustle. There's books written about it. Grit. We hear about it all the time. I'll sleep when I'm dead. Okay. I'm telling you right now, that is an absolutely terrible strategy. Okay. Systems beat hustle every day. Doesn't mean you can't and shouldn't work hard. Doesn't mean that you at times, at moments, have to grind it out or do the work. But if you're simply trying to work, what you're doing is confusing effort with results. And that's not a winning strategy. So you need your calendar systems, you need decision frameworks, and you need financial clarity. I would say one of the things that so many entrepreneurs do is they push their financials to others. Okay. Learn and know your financials. It's not fun. Okay. I get it. We've been talking about taxes. It's very similar. It's not why most people get up in the morning and say, I want to start a business, is because I want to spend most of my day with my balance sheet and cash flow. Okay. But knowing it and knowing it intimately is the unlock to do the things. I have a cash flow model I push towards all of my entrepreneurs, and I make them for at least 13 weeks do a weekly cash flow. Okay. Every inflow, every outflow for 13 weeks, forecast versus actual. Okay. Most of them hate me for 13 weeks. It's terrifying, first of all. It's annoying. But by the end of the 13 weeks, you'll realize you start week one pathologically optimistic. Okay. You believe you're going to receive a whole lot more money and spend a whole lot less. And then you realize that's not how it's working. Okay. 13 weeks later, you have a much better sense of the flow of your business. Your business feels more predictable. You feel more in front of it. You're not, sitting with your toes dangling off the precipice of a cliff. You see the cliffs coming up. Doesn't mean you can get rid of them, but it means you can see them in advance and make decisions proactively instead of reactively. Okay. Capital readiness. How many in here are raising money? Okay. That's an amazingly low number. And I think that's wonderful, by the way. But by the way, whether you're actively raising or will never raise, these things still apply. And that's number one is that you have to have strong fundamentals. A business has to be built on strong fundamentals. Good economics, good financial rigor. Then you have to build your team and systems. So hiring the right people, knowing when to hire people, when to take people that were fractional and move them to full time. Then metrics and performance. We hear a lot of things, KPR or KPIs, OKRs. I don't care what you call them, how you do it. What matters is that you know exactly the 3 to 5 things that are going to drive your business forward and watch those closely. You have a clear vision and model, and that vision can change. That clarity can get blurry, as we talked about. It's a spiral, but you have to work to get back to that. If you do all of those things, you're ready to raise money. And if you're ready to raise money, then you have a viable business, and maybe you don't need to raise money. That's what my goal would be for you. Resiliency. So the tardigrade. The tardigrade is the antithetical mascot that we stumbled across 10 years ago to the unicorn. Okay. The tardigrade is this tiny microscopic creature, sometimes called the water bear. It can live on the moon. It's been dumped on the moon. It can live in radioactive environments. It can live in the bottom of the ocean. And if things, the shit hits the fan, it can go into cryptobiosis, reducing its metabolic rate to 0.1% and live for up to 30 years without food and water. Okay. Those are the kind of businesses I encourage you to build. The kind of businesses, I'm going to date myself. I was trying to explain this to one of my granddaughters, and she had no clue what it is. But how many of you remember those Bobo dolls? They used to be, like probably 3 foot tall blow up dolls with sand on the bottom that you could just punch, and they would, lay down and come back up again. That you have to build that. You're going to get punched. You're going to get knocked down. You have to be able to rebound. Okay, so this is where I get, again, a little bit on the soft side. Inner growth precedes outer growth. Again, your inner game as a leader, as an entrepreneur, is the glass ceiling for your outer game. Okay, if you aren't doing the work on yourself, and I'm not just talking about as a leader, but I mean as a human. If you're not doing that work, if you're not investing in yourself, trying to get better, and that includes whether that's your spiritual practice, community, relationships, knowledge, all of those kinds of things, you are going to become the limiter and the ceiling for the growth of your business. So if you're going to be a leader, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you've got to be committed to doing this. Okay, so putting it all together, what it takes, okay? What it takes to build and scale a business. This is, again, my pattern recognition. Number one, so it's 5 dimensions. And these 5 dimensions, you're going to be working on them concurrently, okay? So they're never perfect. They're never fully evolved. They're in constant flux. Number one is operating discipline, strong fundamentals, data-driven decisions, financial clarity, just rigor, just financial rigor, all the boring stuff about business, okay? Number 2 is energy management, the woo-woo stuff, all right? Sustainable performance through boundaries and rituals. And what I mean by boundaries and rituals are like stopping work at certain times, Katie taking a 45-minute walk during the day and not feeling guilty for taking a 45-minute walk, but feeling like it's, an unlock to the business. It's doing the same for your team, like not sending emails to team members at 9 or 10 at night just because you're brain dumping, because when they receive it, they're like, I got to respond. And then that leaves them without those boundaries. Energy management is a key to scale. Okay. Team and systems, we've talked a lot about that. Aligned culture, aligned systems, rituals, the way you communicate, roles. Everybody understands what they're doing, what they're accountable for, who is doing what, and how we're talking about it. Focus and fundamentals. Again, staying away from the shiny object, not being a squirrel. Okay, just narrowing and simplifying a business. The more simplistic you can make your business, the better. Okay. And again, when you're onto something right, when you're building something special, like you guys with more, okay, I heard you mention, I'm trying to be careful not to get too many SKUs. That's keep it simple. Keep it as simple for as long as you can. Don't invite complexity in, and stay focused, because focus is going to lead you forward. And the last one is inner evolution, that personal growth, doing that work, building all of the things that you need to become a better human. And sometimes we feel, and a lot of the entrepreneurs and folks that I work with, they struggle with this because it feels somewhat, extractive or selfish. It's not. My wife, who's in the back, we talk about this. We learn this the same way. You first have to become selfish in order to be generous. Because if you're not doing the work for yourself, if you're not restoring yourself, if you're not growing and becoming better and constantly challenging yourself to learn, to expand your horizons, to to build your spirituality, all the things that are necessary to make you stronger, then you're just not showing up. Okay, so all of those things matter. So those are the 5 dimensions, and I would really welcome any questions, comments, debate. I'm here for you.
How about a round of applause to start? That was awesome.
Thank you.
I appreciate so much what you shared, and I want to dive into this kind of concept of like personal capacity building.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I want my business to do this, my nervous system, my day-to-day systems, my relationships, everything has to be able to hold that new growth. So what do you recommend people do to help with that process?
I think it's very personal. I mean, it really speaks to what you need to do for you, right? We all have different strengths and different weaknesses. But to ask that question, of yourself, I think questions are the most important thing a business can ask, and asking questions of yourself. What can I do to show up better? What do I need to show up better? I'm on a board of a company that we just went through a very large PE transaction, and it was the most stressful moment for that leader to navigate through that time frame. And he came back to me and said that the thing that helped him make it through was all the work that he'd done on that inner evolution over the last 2 years. So
yeah, I'm not surprised by that at all. But it's interesting that it's like almost revolutionary to present that, right?
Yeah.
Questions for Elliot. I mean, I have several. So how about right here? Oh, yeah. I love this. Okay, she wants to know, like, do you have a before and after on the 13-week financial experiment, like a really fun kind of transformational story?
I mean, none of them I would say are fun.
Yeah, right. I did, a second that
Right.
came out, I was like, yeah.
I mean, to me, what we typically see, and I can't give you a case study, but what we typically see is, like I said, we're pathologically optimistic. As entrepreneurs, that's just a disease for us, because why in the world would we wake up and start a business? I mean, it's ridiculous, right? There's no logic that would do it. So by nature, we're that. So I think the thing that we see is that when the timing of when money comes in, that's probably the most. I think we typically have a better feel of outflow. What we don't is inflow, and when that money is coming in and how long it takes to come in, and sometimes how diluted it arrives by the time all the hands in the cookie jar are doing that. But in general, in more broad terms, just learning the cadence of your business and becoming a student of your own business is critical, right? So and I would say this. I led a company a couple weeks ago. I'm on the board of, and they wanted to do a strategic planning session. And so they called and said, will you come and facilitate it? And I said, no, I won't do it. Not because I'm, unwilling or a jerk. That's, debatable, but because I don't think strategic plans for entrepreneurial businesses, or businesses that are in that messy middle between startup and durable scale, are worth it. I think, in fact, what every entrepreneur should be doing is trying to identify if there are 3 questions I can ask and answer in my business that will propel me forward. What are those 3 questions? How do I get the answers, and how long will it take me to get those answers? That's it. That's strategy. Okay. What are those questions? 3, no more than 5. If I can get those questions, that will unlock the most value in the business. And I would actually start there before anything else. Start there. What are those questions?
That's great. Thank you. Okay, other questions for Elliot? Yes, Roger. Yeah. This is a great question. So in regards to your 5 main points, can you give us an example of someone who learned the hard way by not doing this and what that looked like?
Yes. Unfortunately. I'll start with operating discipline. The thing I see most often is around unit economics margin, right? And I'll speak specifically to CPG, cost of goods. I'll get cost of goods better when I scale. That's probably the number one thing I hear and the number one mistake, because in order to scale, you grow into more locations. In order to get into more locations and compete with more brands, there's downward price pressure. So you inevitably give up as much margin as you potentially make because of that. I think in terms of energy management, this is sadly, I see this is probably the most damaging thing and most constant is that founders wind up and entrepreneurs wind up completely depleted, and I'm getting getting calls, tears streaming down. I'm done. I'm out. I want to get out. I want to unwind the business. I can't do it anymore. And when I look at it, on paper, I look at the numbers, it doesn't need that yet. It's not anywhere near that, but they're there. And I see that happen often. Team and systems is another one. They hire too high, too quick. They hold on too long, or they don't hire at all. They try to do it themselves. And then I think the other one I'll talk about is just that inner evolution. They're not that, you have to be, as an entrepreneur, you have to balance. It's like being on a teeter-totter, and then one side is malleability and the other side is fierceness. You got to balance that, because if you're too fierce, you're too convinced, you're too arrogant that you have the answers, you stagnate, don't grow. If you're too malleable and you get in a room with a bunch of opinions and you swing to every opinion, you go nowhere. So finding that balance is key.
How do you identify brands that you want to bring on and work with? Are they coming to you? Are you looking around? Are you like, hey, I'm Elliot, I can help you? Or how's that work?
No, I'm like the most reluctant self-promoter, so thank God I don't have to do that. No, clients are almost always referred to us, either by other founders or by PEs or VCs, or even folks that have met with them and said, it's a company that is so close and we might be willing to acquire them or put money into them, but they're not there yet, work with them. Lately, the pyramid has been inverted a bit, and now I've been asked by PE firms and corporate venture arms to come in and help them build a framework around this 5 dimensions so they can look at a business, because typically the way we're looking at businesses is only product market fit and financials and the normal things that fall into the purview of due diligence, but not looking at it across the other parts of those dimensions.
I'd love to hear that. Okay, I have one more question right here.
So you talked a lot about, one of the things you mentioned, right, was having metrics, making sure you know kind of your KPIs, whatever you want to call it for your metric. I've also heard the truism or whatever that once a metric becomes a goal, it ceases to be a good metric. How do you have any tips on how to kind of balance that for founders who are obsessing over their metrics and wanting to hit certain metrics maybe, but that then starts to undermine?
Yeah, this is a great question. So in regards to metrics, you've identified a metric, you've set it as a goal. Now it's no longer a reliable metric. So how do you, any tips that you have for founders in identifying how to set metrics and how to work with them and evolve them? Did I do you okay? Yeah, all right. Without them becoming,
you start manipulating things to hit those numbers.
Yeah, without manipulating things to hit the metrics. Okay.
It's a great question. I mean, I talk about vanity metrics a lot too. So, we score certain things because they feel good or look good. So that could be revenue, or that could be, ROAS, return on advertising spend. It could be any of those things. Fundamentally, it comes back to those questions I talked about. So what are the questions you're trying to answer and unlock? And should they, how do you get those answers? The metrics should be about finding those answers. And metrics should evolve. You should be looking and challenge. I'm not a big fan of KPIs. I'm not a big fan of dashboarding. I think there's some basic things that you need. I mean, I worked for a guy for years and years and years, and he always used to say, Elliot, this isn't complicated at all. It's simple. Business is simple. It's gross profit and expenses. That's it. If you have enough gross profit and your expenses are low enough, you're fine. Nothing else matters. And to a degree, that's ultimately true, is don't confuse it and just keep it simple. But I think you want metrics that are indicators, predictors. Those are the metrics that matter, not goals, not outcomes, but you want things to say, I'm moving in the right direction. So if you want to get to here, what are the steps to do that? Those are your metrics.
Yeah, I want to clearly, quickly, and reliably understand what's working here, right? So I can make adjustments. This was amazing. Thank you so much. I mean,
My
there's so
pleasure.
much to
My
take
pleasure.
away.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. I hope you'll come back and give us another lesson.